Hello.
New York, the city that never sleeps, has always been full of contrasts. Wealthy businessmen in suits, tourists with smartphones taking pictures of skyscrapers, and homeless people seeking shelter in the shadows of skyscrapers. In the midst of this chaos was a small restaurant, a cozy corner where you could escape the noise of the city. It belonged to Mr. Grayson, an ambitious but strict man who ran the place with an iron fist. In his mind, the restaurant was not just a business, but a competition where you had to survive at all costs. Emily, a young waitress, had been working there for the past 6 months. She was known among her colleagues for her kindness and willingness to help anyone who needed it. She always had time for a smile or a few warm words for customers. But such kindness was not always appreciated in a world where efficiency and profit came first. One cool evening, as the city was filled with the glow of streetlights and neon signs, the restaurant door opened and a man walked in. His appearance immediately attracted attention. Worn clothes, old shoes, and a weathered face. He looked like someone who had not known the warmth of home for a long time. The room fell silent as he hesitantly walked up to the counter and quietly asked for a glass of water. Mr. Grayson, who was standing nearby, reacted instantly. His face became stern, and he asked loudly, "What do you want here?" The man looked up and answered, "I just wanted some water." The words sounded almost like a plea, but to Grayson, that was unacceptable. "This is not a charity. If you don't have money, you don't belong here," he said, pointing to the door. The atmosphere became tense. Some of the clients looked down shyly, while others continued to watch, curious to see what would happen next. Emily, who was watching this scene from the opposite end of the room, could not stand aside. She put down her order pad and approached the man. "Please sit down," she said quietly and gestured to one of the free tables. The man looked at her in surprise, but her gaze was full of sincerity. "Emily, what are you doing?" asked Grayson irritably, approaching them. "This man just wants some water," she replied, trying to stay calm. "It's not going to hurt us. You are here to follow my orders, not to give out alms." "I don't want him in my restaurant," the owner said sharply. But Emily had already made her decision. She brought the man a glass of water and quietly asked him if he was hungry. The man nodded hesitantly, and she gave him part of her tip to pay for a hot meal for him. The customers began to look at each other, whispering, and Grayson, furious, ordered her to stop immediately. "Emily, if you don't stop, you might want to look for a new job," he said coldly. She held her gaze on Grayson, but said nothing. Her decision was unshakable. She put a bowl of soup in front of her husband and smiled warmly. "Enjoy," she said. After that, Grayson called her into his office. He was relentless. "You are fired." "I don't need employees who break the rules," he said, closing the matter. Emily gathered her things. Her co-workers looked at her sadly, but no one dared to express support. She left the restaurant with mixed feelings. The pain of injustice mixed with the satisfaction of having done the right thing. On the street, the wind blew coolly against her face. She walked toward the subway, trying to comprehend what would happen next. But no matter what, she knew she had done the right thing. Her act was small, but it meant a lot to that man. That night in New York, the lights seemed brighter and the world a little more human. Little did Emily know that her story was just beginning, and soon her kindness would be returned in unexpected ways. Emily left the restaurant with a light heart, despite losing her job. She didn't regret her actions, because she knew that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't always mean being profitable. Her mind was on that man. Who was he? What had put him in this situation? She tried to convince herself that even a small gesture of kindness could help him a little. The next morning, she woke up with no plans. Her phone remained silent, and no new job offer had come through. Emily decided to spend the day outdoors to collect her thoughts. She wandered through the familiar streets of New York, deep in thought. Her act seemed small in the scale of the world, but big in the scale of humanity. Meanwhile, the restaurant she had left was experiencing unexpected interest. Some of the customers who had witnessed the situation the day before began to spread the story on social media. People shared their thoughts on how important it is to treat others with respect, regardless of the circumstances. The owner of the restaurant, Mr. Grayson, did not immediately realize that the attention to his establishment was a result of Emily's dismissal. The man Emily had fed disappeared from sight that day. However, rumors began to circulate in the city that he had been seen in other establishments, talking to the staff and watching them closely. People did not realize that it was Keanu Reeves, who was conducting his experiment undercover. He was collecting information about how different restaurants treated visitors in difficult life circumstances. A few days after Emily's release, there was a knock at the door of her modest apartment. She opened the door and saw a group of people with cameras. One of them, a man with a friendly smile, was the stranger she had fed. He no longer looked like a homeless man. His outfit was simple but neat, and his confidence was now evident. Keanu explained that he was so impressed by her act that he decided to make Emily's story known. The story of her kindness spread quickly. The video of the situation in the restaurant received millions of views. People admired her humanity and condemned the behavior of the restaurant owner. Comments were filled with words of support for Emily and offers of help. She even started receiving job offers from other establishments that valued kindness and humanity more than strict rules. While Mr. Grayson's restaurant was beginning to lose customers due to the negative attention, Emily was preparing for new opportunities. Her story became a symbol that goodness always finds its way into people's hearts. Little did she know that she would face not only new challenges, but also unexpected rewards for her sincerity and courage. Emily woke up the next day with mixed feelings. She couldn't believe how quickly her life had changed after she left the restaurant. Each new comment on social media made her feel more confident that her actions had not gone unnoticed. Her phone started ringing more often than ever. Journalists, representatives of charitable organizations, and even restaurants offering her jobs were calling. She hadn't decided what her next step would be, but she knew she couldn't just go back to her normal life. At the same time, Mr. Grayson began to feel the effects of his brutality. Customers were canceling their reservations in droves, and negative reviews of the restaurant were being posted online. The story of how the owner kicked the man out and Emily lost her job because of her kindness became known throughout New York. Grayson realized that his reputation was in jeopardy, but he didn't know how to fix the situation. He tried to change his strategy by inviting new customers with discounts, but it didn't work. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves, who had remained in the shadows, was preparing to make his next move. He realized that Emily's story was an example of how even one act of kindness can change the lives of many people. He decided to organize a press conference to talk about his experiment and highlight Emily as an example of the humanity that is lacking in the modern world. The press conference was held in a New York hotel. It was attended by many journalists and members of the public who wanted to hear the story firsthand. Keanu took the stage in simple clothes, as always, without pathos. He spoke about how he decided to check whether there was any room for kindness in a large metropolis. He visited dozens of restaurants, and only in one place did he see someone who really cared about others. When Keanu mentioned Emily's name, the audience applauded. He described what she had done, told them how much it had impressed him, and thanked her for not being indifferent. He also said that he planned to support her financially so that she could realize her dreams. The room was silent as he handed her a certificate for a significant amount of money. After the press conference, Emily's story became even more popular. People from all over the world began to write her words of support. She received invitations to television, magazines, and offers of cooperation from various social projects. Her life became like a fairy tale, but she never forgot her goal of helping others. Watching Emily's success, Grayson finally realized his mistakes. He tried to contact her to apologize, but she politely declined to meet. Her kindness did not mean that she was ready to forgive everything without consequences. She decided to focus her efforts on creating a new project that would not only be profitable, but also help those in need. Emily's life was never the same again. She realized that one act can change not only the fate of one person, but also inspire thousands of others to do good deeds. Emily's story continued to gain momentum, and soon her name became known not only in New York, but also far beyond. People admired her kindness and perseverance, and numerous invitations to interviews and press articles opened up new horizons for her. However, despite her sudden fame, she remained the same simple girl who one day decided to help a stranger. One of the most important moments in her new life was her contact with charitable organizations. Some of them offered her cooperation, others just wanted to share their experience and offer help in realizing her own ideas. Emily decided it was time to focus her efforts on creating something meaningful. She started working on a plan to open a social cafe where people in difficult life circumstances could get food for free or for a nominal price. She wanted to create a place that would provide not only food, but also hope. At the same time, her support continued to grow. Keanu Reeves, who had already become a symbol of her story, remained an active participant in the process. He often mentioned Emily in his interviews, talking about her strength of spirit and ability to influence others by example. His involvement drew even more attention to the project, and people began to donate to its implementation. Emily was amazed at how powerful the impact of human support can be. However, she also faced challenges. Working on the cafe required not only finances, but also legal knowledge, organizational skills, and constant communication with partners. She spent long hours researching laws, meeting with potential suppliers, and looking for the perfect location for her establishment. Sometimes she would fall asleep at her laptop, exhausted after another day, but her dream kept her going. While most people only saw her success, Emily also dealt with criticism. Some believed that her popularity was just a short-term effect of a viral story and that her project was doomed to fail. Others doubted her ability to manage such a large-scale enterprise. But instead of giving up, she used these words as motivation. Emily realized that her path would not be easy, but that was what made her goal so meaningful. Eventually, after several months of hard work, she found a place for her cafe. It was an old house in a cozy neighborhood that needed renovation, but had a lot of potential. Together with the volunteers who joined her project, she began to transform the place into something unique. The walls were covered in warm colors, and the windows filled the room with natural light. Everything in the cafe spoke of humanity and care. When the opening day finally arrived, Emily stood in front of the door of her cafe, feeling a mixture of excitement and pride. People gathered around, waiting for her to cut the ribbon. Among the crowd, she spotted a familiar face. It was Keanu. He was smiling, as if supporting her with his presence. The first day of the cafe was filled with joy. People who needed help received food, companionship, and even a little inspiration. Emily knew this was just the beginning. Her dream had come true, but there was still a lot of work to be done. She felt that each new step would be a part of her story that would inspire even more people. After opening the cafe, Emily felt that her life had taken on a new meaning. The visitors who came in every day were not only customers, but also part of a large community that had grown around the idea of helping those in need. Her cafe became a place where people could find not only food, but also support, companionship, and hope. After a few months of operation, the cafe turned into a real center of goodness. Volunteers helped prepare meals, serve guests, and even held classes for those who wanted to learn new skills. Several visitors who had previously come for free food became cafe employees, finding not only work, but also a new start in life. Emily saw how her idea was changing people's lives, and it gave her the strength to keep going. One day, Emily received an unexpected call. She was invited to speak at a major charity conference in Los Angeles. The organizers wanted her to talk about her journey and how her cafe had become a symbol of humanity. Emily was hesitant at first. She had never spoken in front of a large audience. But the realization that her story could inspire others convinced her to accept the invitation. At the conference, Emily took the stage in front of thousands of people. Her voice was shaking, but she began to tell the story of the night in the restaurant when she decided to help the man against the owner's orders. She shared how this act changed her life and became the impetus for creating the cafe. Her words were sincere, and every person in the room felt the emotions she put into her story. When her speech was over, the room burst into applause. People came up to her after the conference, thanking her for her inspiration and offering to help her expand her project. Keanu Reeves reappeared in the crowd. He hugged Emily and said, "I always believed you were capable of something great." His support remained one of her greatest motivations. Back in New York, Emily started working on new ideas. She planned to open several more cafes in other parts of the city to help even more people. Her project began to receive support from all over the world. People made donations, volunteers volunteered to help, and businesses offered partnerships. Emily's Cafe became not only a place to serve food, but also a source of change for many. She introduced training programs for the unemployed, psychological support for those going through difficult times, and even started a small foundation to fund education for talented young people who could not study due to financial difficulties. Emily realized that a single act of kindness can be a catalyst for great change. She wasn't looking for fame, but her story became a symbol that humanity and compassion can change the world. Her life became an example for others, and many people learned about her journey and began to do good deeds in their own lives. On the day of the cafe's opening, Emily gathered everyone who was part of her journey, from volunteers and employees to visitors and friends. She gave a speech thanking everyone for their support and emphasizing that this was their common victory. "This is not only my cafe, it is our home, where everyone can find warmth and hope," she said. This story is proof that even in a big and complex world, kindness will always find its place. Emily knew that her journey was not over yet, but she was ready to move on, confident that every day brings new opportunities to change someone's life for the better.
Goodbye.